Greetings everyone. Hope all of you are having an absolutely fantastic day. Finally, we have gotten the new 1.5 patch for Warhammer 40K Rogue Trader, and it is a doozy. A ton of changes have come out with this patch. I am not going to be going over all of them in this video. There's probably going to be a series of videos that comes out that will explain more and more of what has changed in Rogue Trader, but this one will give you a general overview of some of the things that have been overhauled and why it is so exciting. Let's go ahead and dive in. So one of the things you all have asked for the most is an overhaul of some of the origins, and that's exactly what has happened in this patch. Specifically, Astra Militarum, Priest, Navy Officer, and Commissar have all been pretty much completely reworked to be much more effective. And if you thought Abelard was a beast before, with the upgrades to Navy Officer, he is absolutely insane now. So he still gets the feature Brace for Impact, which is now going to grant him the braced effect to both himself and each ally in a 5-cell radius. Now the braced effect is going to give him +2 deflection for each archetype that he has chosen, so up to +6. And he's going to gain immunity to force movement effects and cannot be overpenetrated. Now this effect lasts for 1 round, and he's going to gain 1 charge of this ability at the start of combat, but he can also gain a charge of it when his wounds drop below 50% for the first time in combat, and each time an ally falls unconscious for the first time in combat. So if the fight is really brutal and your team is getting completely ripped apart, Brace for Impact is going to be available more and more. That's definitely nice, but the fun doesn't stop there. For each one of these origins, they also have had their optional talents completely reworked. So you're going to have completely different options than what you originally had before, and some of them are super cool, such as what's available for Navy Officer, Fleet Combat Training. When the Navy Officer scores a critical hit or successfully parries an attack with their primary weapon, they immediately make an attack, whichever costs the least AP, with their secondary weapon against the same enemy. This is insane because Abelard is going to critically hit pretty much all of the freaking time. And if you give him one of those small shotgun pistols, which there are a ton of throughout the game now with the DLC that just came out, basically every time he hits one of those crits, he's going to do a shotgun blast that sprays out to all of the enemies that are in front of him. With that extra talent, you basically don't need Vanguard. Like, what purpose does it serve? You're automatically going to do an additional attack when you parry attacks anyway. Crazy. And that also means basically Abelard, once you select that feat, which you can do very quickly in the game, he will be able to attack 3 times in his turn. Once when you charge, once when you do an attack, and then if you crit, he'll do a 3rd attack as well, all in the same turn. And you can do that over and over again every single turn, every single time his turn comes around. Abelard is just a monster now. And again, other origins have been given the similar treatment. So if we look under Argenta, she has Litany of Hatred for Priest, and this has been completely reworked, where now with the main feature, it's going to give you stacks of zeal. And if you take this talent, it's going to allow her to give the entire party, or at least nearby party members, extra weapon damage, and this weapon damage is going to double against demons, psychers, and xenos. Super cool. I'll have a separate video combing through all of the origins and their new changes. But of course, the changes don't just stop there, and they're not all geared towards making things more effective or easier for the player. So now the amount of experience required for a level up has been exponentially increased with every level. This is going to have a big impact on you in Act 1 because with all the DLC, things had gotten to the point where you could easily get into the second archetype before Act 1 had even ended. That's no longer the case. You're back to only being able to max out your first archetype by the end of Act 1. And then even in Act 2, you're going to notice that the XP is much more spaced out so that you're not really maxing things out until Act 4, which is, of course, what was intended. So the way XP is doled out now takes the extra DLC content into account across the board. Now, to be honest, I know a lot of people have been asking for this. I've always felt a little dicey on it because I feel like there's plenty of people who don't play the DLC content. So to rework the base game with the DLC content in mind is a little bit iffy to me, but at the end of the day, it's not like Rogue Trader is a super difficult game. So as long as your builds are competent, and if you're following this channel, they will be, it shouldn't really be a problem. Speaking of competent builds, another thing that has been changed about this game is the initial builds of party members that you receive. So for those who are not aware, for many of the party members, the builds you initially get cannot be changed, and oftentimes companions had chosen talents or skills that just did not make any sense at all based on the type of character that they were supposed to play. And so I'll kind of comb through the builds for all of the different characters and improve them significantly. So right now I'm going through Jay, who was definitely one of the main culprits of this. Her initial build is so much better now. So much better. I mean, she starts with commanding voice and then takes lasting impression, which makes much more sense. She now has the correct upgrades for finest hour. So she takes the one that allows the target to deal extra damage. And then she does also have the one that makes their non-attacking abilities cost 1 action point less. It is such a better experience using her now compared to when the game was first launched, and that is the case for multiple other party members as well. And in the case of Pascal, instead of him starting with a las gun now, he starts with an arc rifle, which is really cool because of the new skills that are in the game. So there's over 20 new skills that all revolve around exotic or rare equipment, and arc rifle is one of them. And plasma rifles have actually been changed significantly now as well. So first, starting with arc rifles, you can see enemies hit by the arc rifle suffer a number of echo pulse stacks equal to 10% of the damage dealt. Now, echo pulse is going to cause that creature to suffer a number of stacks of shock damage with an amount of armor penetration that scales with your intelligence. And so basically, for any character who has a high intelligence, there are now talents available that are going to allow you to make even more use of the arc rifle. And you see there's another option here. If allies become the secondary targets of this character's arc rifle, they do not suffer damage, again making it a much more viable weapon than it was before. But to be honest with you, you're probably again not going to put that plasma rifle down for Pascal, because plasma weapons have multiple new talents, and the heating mechanism has been completely changed, where now you can clearly see how much heat your plasma rifle is generating, and you have options as far as what to do to dissipate that heat and ensure that you're not going to end up in an unfortunate situation. Just really cool stuff all the way around. There are a ton of all Dari and Drukhari options that are new as well. So Poetry of Pain, your Drukhari ranged weapons deal 20% more damage for each damage over time effect the target is suffering. Just really cool stuff that makes it more viable to use Earliet and Marazai in your party. But yet again, for every buff and new thing provided to make the character more powerful, they also provide a debuff. And in this case, we're going to talk about Cabela, who has had a little bit of a nerf, but it's not really a nerf, to be completely honest with you. So basically, it revolves around death from above, which you all know is the talent that allows her to leap into the air, land on a cell, and then she's going to deal damage to all adjacent targets. Well, it still allows her to do that, and it still allows her to deal the same amount of damage you would expect, but now she's going to get a short of breath debuff each time you use death from above. And this debuff is going to reduce her strength and perception by 10%, but perhaps even more importantly, it's going to reduce her dodge by 20%. And again, this is going to stack based on how many times you use the ability. So you can easily get to the point where her dodge is reduced by 100%, essentially making her a glass cannon. This also means the ability Veil of Blades becomes significantly more useful because it's all about parrying attacks instead of dodging them. But if you get Veil of Blades, you can't use acrobatic artistry, so it's like a damned if you do, damned if you don't type of situation. I say that this is only kind of a debuff because at the end of the day, all of her damage is still there. And so if you wipe out, 5 or 6 enemies and there's still 4 or 5 left, sure, maybe the last, few are able to wipe her out, but then you still have 5 other party members who can come in and finish the job. And Cabela has talents that allow her to take advantage of injuries and trauma anyway to make her more powerful. So you don't really care about her going down like that unless it's like a boss battle and you really needed her damage. And so all the way around, I think this is interesting what they've done, but I wouldn't go so far as go to a point it's going to make you totally change how you feel about Cabela and how much you want to use her. Keep in mind though that this debuff does also apply with Death Waltz, which is going to have you use death from above over and over again based on your dexterity bonus. You will still receive that debuff when you use the ultimate ability. Keep in mind, Bladedancer was not the only archetype to receive a change. In fact, Executioner got changed even more than Bladedancer. I'm not quite sure if the Bladedancer Executioner Pyro build has been totally nerfed, but it's definitely not going to be as effective as it once was. So an example of the change is Carnival of Misery has been completely reworked now. And so now it's going to allow you to make a hit with your primary weapon against a target. On hit, the target suffers weapon damage, and if it is affected by any damage over time effects, it's going to immediately suffer 4 additional instances of damage from those effects. This does not affect the duration of those effects. And so that is completely different from what Carnival of Misery used to do. I'll have to do some more testing and playing around with it to give you all an answer regarding the Pyro build, but they've definitely worked around some of the other options you have as well. I know Scourging Strikes has changed, and Where It Hurts has been changed significantly also, for those of you who are interested. Oh, and real quick about the arc rifle as well, I forgot to mention that now its single shot attack only costs 1 action point. So even more has been done to make this weapon very viable. All right, now in addition to everything I mentioned, there's also been quite a bit of dialogue that was re-recorded to make it sound more clean, especially for the DLC with Solomon that just came out. Outcat apparently felt like there were some things that could have done better, so you might notice some of those changes as you're playing through the game. And they have done hundreds of bug fixes and quality of life changes to make your experience better while you're going through the game. So just all the way around, it should be a significantly superior experience to what you had before. And that's it. That is the small summary of all of the crazy things Owlcat has added and changed in the game. Again, this is by no means an exhaustive list of everything going on, so I will have a link in the description so that you can look at the patch notes yourself and see some of those changes. And I will have more videos coming out walking through more of this amazing Rogue Trader content. If you have not subscribed to the channel as of yet, I would definitely appreciate you hitting the subscribe button, hit that like button if you enjoy this video, and hit that bell so you don't miss any content. If there's any specific videos regarding Rogue Trader you would like to see come out, let me know. I do plan to do a video going over all of the origin mechanics, and I'll probably do a video also going over all of the new skills that have been added into the game. But if there's more content you're looking for, definitely let me know. It looks like I'm going to be covering a lot more Rogue Trader over the next few weeks. There are links down in the description if you would like to join as a member or join the Patreon so you get access to unique reaction content. I would certainly appreciate the support. I hope all of you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.